Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Girls Talk podcast, One Community Against HPV. I'm Claire Codilla, and today we're doing a deep dive into one of the most long overdue but so vitally important topics for overall women's health: the realities of human papillomavirus, or HPV, and cervical cancer. So for those who missed out on our event last November 2023, don't worry, don't fret, because this podcast is exactly for you. So here to shed light on this often neglected topic, we have here none other than the very beautiful, the very energetic Dr. Stephanie Mesina-Veneracion. Doc Stiffy!
Hi, Claire.
Hi,
It's so nice to see you again. This
So
is
nice to
our
have you here.
third time working together.
I feel like
believe.
in different areas.
In different
of
areas.
life.
All right. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm very excited again to impart my knowledge about our topic that we will discuss.
Yes, Doc, oh my gosh. And speaking about our topic, especially for the viewers who are here right now, I think it's important for all of them to really have a basic understanding of what really is HPV and, how does it affect overall women's health, who are most at risk, really going into the details already.
All right, let's get down to the details, no? HPV stands for human papillomavirus. Now, this virus is the one that causes 95% of cervical cancers. So not just that, it also causes other HPV-related diseases. When in fact, Claire, this is called a silent pandemic. So not a lot of Filipinos or not a lot of people know that HPV is a silent pandemic. Okay, with just a single sexual intercourse and even with just a single sexual partner, you can have the chance of acquiring HPV 80% of your lifetime, or at least one strain of the virus in your lifetime. So it doesn't mean that you have to have lots of sexual partners for you to get HPV.
Just one.
Just a one-night stand can already put you at risk for having HPV. That's why it's my advocacy to actually put it out there so that a lot of people will know about this. And of course, maalarma sad ang mga tao about sa HPV because it's very alarming, really.
Doc, that's really so concerning, especially so many people can be at risk.
Yes,
just
that's
one
true.
time of being in that situation, I really want to know, what is the link between HPV and cervical cancer? Like, how can the transmission happen and lead to something as huge as cancer?
Okay. All right. So HPV, as I've said earlier, is a sexually transmitted infection. So through sexual intercourse, but not just that. It can also be acquired through skin-to-skin contact.
Skin to skin.
Syempre, when we have sexual intercourse, lagyo data. Diba?
Right.
Dool ba yata?
Right.
We're very close to each other. Then there's a longer contact of the skin to your partner's skin, right? And it can also be transmitted through oral sex.
So even oral?
Yes, oral
Okay.
sex. This explains why. Not only cervical cancer. HPV is not linked only to cervical cancer, but also to oropharyngeal cancer.
Sorry, can you say that again?
Oropharyngeal cancer. That just simply means cancer of the mouth and the throat. Okay? Oral sex, man. And also, it can cause penile cancer. So I just want to really put this out there, no? This notion that HPV only affects women, when in fact, dili. It also affects men. Okay? Even men who have sex with men. And women who have sex with women too.
And any of these genders could be the carriers.
Any of these genders could be the carriers of the virus. Okay? So, sexually transmitted, and of course, the cervix is the most affected for the women. Okay? And however, I want also to emphasize that cervical cancer, before it becomes cancer, it goes through a lot of precancerous lesions. And these precancerous lesions are what's detected in the pap smear. Pap smear, the screening, which I believe I will discuss further
In detail.
So
is it possible, Doc, for example, people might not have the symptoms or the precancerous lesions. Can people just walk around not knowing that they actually have it?
Yes, of course. Because most of the time, people have no symptoms at all. Okay? That's why I said earlier, we have a pre-cancer stage. So this is not cancer yet. And more often than not, during this stage, women usually don't have any symptoms. That's why it's important for us to do our pap smear religiously every year, because pap smear detects the precancer stage. And that precancer stage can be treated before it becomes cancer. And there are also other HPV related diseases, and the most common is genital warts. You know, those bumpy lesions.
Yes, that can be seen.
Those cauliflower-like lesions. Sometimes these are not seen by your naked eye. Sometimes they're too small to be seen with your eye. So that's why it's also part of the reasons why you should have yourself submitted for annual checkup, so that we will see these tiny lesions. Okay, sometimes you don't check your with JJ
Kaya
on a
nga.
daily basis, or you don't put a
Right.
mirror there to check how it looks like, right? Diba? So, of course, you need to see a doctor for you to be diagnosed with such disease.
True. I mean, at that point, since we're really talking about it, I was hoping and thinking na, okay, that can be a warning sign. Like, I just see it, I see all the symptoms, tapos, okay, no go. So there's honestly no way for us to figure out, other than the fact that maybe our sexual partner could provide like, hey, have you been
Yes.
checked up already? Could you provide me a document stating that before this happens?
Unless your
Wala.
partner has been checked.
Yeah, so the risk even when you have a partner, even if it's a long-term partner.
Even if it's a long-term partner. Okay, there won't be a way for you to tell where you got the HPV from, most especially when you've had a history of more than one sexual partner.
That's crazy. But since hopefully, the goal of this whole conversation, Docs TP, is really just to beat the HPV virus and cervical cancer as well, and to really unite everybody in being aware of these things. What are steps that we can do to reduce it? Kahit very small lang, the small steps that we can take in our daily lives to reduce and to beat HPV and cervical cancer.
Okay, I have an acronym for that.
Acronym, let's go.
ABCVD.
ABCVD.
All right, so the A there stands for abstinence. But, it's impossible for us to do that because, as we all know, sex is listed by Maslow as one of our primary needs in the hierarchy of needs, right? So, yeah. So, di gina nato siya pwede iwala sa atong activities, right? So, abstinence is impossible. However, that leads us to be faithful. Okay?
Lessens the risk.
Yes, it lessens the risk. Now, I said earlier na one sexual partner or one history of sexual intercourse can already put you at risk for acquiring HPV. But there are people who are more prone, more at risk. And those people are those who had sexual intercourse at a very early age, okay? Those with history of multiple sexual partners. They are at most at risk, those smokers. Also.
Even smokers?
Yes, even smokers.
Oh, what is it about the smokers? Is it the immune system that
The
brings them
smokers
down?
could be the immune system, and it could be the alteration of the cells, making them more prone to developing cancer. Like, to simply explain it lang.
That's for cigarette smoking, or what do you, even for vaping?
Cigarette smoking. I'm not so sure about vaping though, but could be.
But more at risk.
More at
Than
risk.
non-smokers. Interesting. That's B.
Be faithful. C, wear a condom. But then again, condom doesn't guarantee 100% protection. Okay? But at least you have protection. Okay? V is vaccination, and D is doctor's consult, wherein you go to your doctor for pap smear, annual checkup. Okay? Very important is really the vaccination and the screening. So there's what we call primary prevention and secondary prevention. Primary prevention is the vaccination. Okay? The HPV vaccination. I want everyone to take advantage of the fact that HPV is one of the only two cancers, Claire, with a vaccine, and the other one is liver. Diba? So we're very fortunate that during these times, na natain-ani na vaccine,
I'm also very interested on the V,
the vaccination.
how do we know, like, the effectiveness of it for preventing cervical cancer and HPV?
Before we go to the effectiveness, Claire, I just want to educate our viewers how the vaccine or when the vaccine is given. We can actually give the vaccine as early as 9 years old.
9?
Yes, to both boys and girls.
Is it more effective if it's younger?
Yes. It's more effective when a person does not have any history of sexual intercourse. When you're naive to the virus, that's more effective. Recently, there has been no limit to the age of giving HPV vaccine. Okay, even for postmenopausal women with new partners, they're even advised to get the HPV vaccine if they want to.
So what about the effectiveness, Doc, when it comes to that? Because we want to know like a more detailed approach, just for those who are still, on the fence about it, or for those who don't really have any idea how significant the changes are going to be if they get vaccinated. How different is it going to be if you're vaccinated versus not vaccinated?
According to studies, the efficacy of the HPV vaccine is nearly 100%.
100?
Yes, nearly 100%. And ever since its rollout, 135 vaccines have been sent out and have been given. And so far, for the follow-ups made, it has been proven to be safe and effective.
Okay, Doc. So now that we understand that people are actually at risk, especially if they don't take the necessary steps, the ABC, VD steps. Nagi V sa center sa D, no? Hindi siya ABCDV. No, it's VD. I want to know, Doc, I have here a list of different situations, different scenarios, and then you have to tell me at risk or not at risk.
Okay, do you have to explain?
It would be nice if you explained a little bit. It comes off as at the top of your mind when you think that this is at risk. You say at risk, if not at risk, and then why.
Okay.
All right, are we ready, Doc?
Yes.
So, Marshaga, fast talk a little bit, but then at the same time, fast talk with explanation. Am I at risk or not at risk if I am in an exclusive long-term relationship?
At risk.
Even then.
Even then, because you don't know if your current partner, even if you're in a very long-term relationship, you don't know if the history of your partner, he or she had a history of multiple sexual partners in the past, or if his or her sexual partner was also carriers of HPV. So there's no way for you to know.
Yeah, that's true. Gosh, second one, Doc. If the situation is I've never had any symptoms of HPV infection, am I at risk or not at risk?
At risk. At risk, gihapon. Still. Why? Because as I've said earlier, you may be completely asymptomatic. You might be just a carrier of HPV. And you don't feel anything, right?
Yeah, but in the long term, you get the effects now when, for example, it starts showing and manifesting. So, next, third. What if no one in my family has ever had cervical cancer? Genetics, wala talaga. Am I still at risk?
Still at risk because HPV is sexually transmitted. It causes 95% of cervical cancer cases, and it is not related to family history.
So it's situational.
It's situational. Although a very small percentage can be acquired genetically, but really, greater than 95% of HPV cases are sexually transmitted.
I see. Next question. Doc, what if I am an adult, but I have had no sexual encounters? Am I still at risk?
Okay, still at risk. But I think the question here is really not being at risk, but I think it's about evaluating yourself if you're fit to receive the HPV vaccine.
Are there certain mechanics for you to take the vaccine, you think,
Not
Doc?
really. But I think the question here is that should I still receive the HPV vaccine even without any history of sexual intercourse? Of course, because as I've said, it works best when your body is still naive to the virus.
Right. As early as 9 years old.
As early as 9 years old.
It's better to take it and then, because it can only happen once. And then you can take it. So, next question. Am I at risk if I am a man who receives the HPV vaccine? So I've already received, for example, I'm a man, Doc, and then I've already received my HPV vaccine. Am I still at risk?
Of course, the risk is lesser.
Lesser.
HPV vaccine has more than 100 serotypes. It has a lot of strains. But the vaccines developed have targeted the 9 common strains of the virus, the ones causing genital warts, cervical cancer, okay, anal cancer, penile cancer, oropharyngeal cancer. But, as I've said earlier, HPV vaccines are effective nearly as close as 100%. So, being a male patient who has received the HPV vaccine puts you at a very low risk of acquiring HPV. Siguro it would be very, how would I say it? It will be very unlucky for you to get that certain strain not found in the vaccines we have manufactured.
Right. Lesser, definitely. Men and women who take the vaccination.
That's right.
Nice.
So, say for example, I have a patient whom I have diagnosed genital warts. Okay. As soon as I diagnose that patient, I advise not only my patient to get vaccinated, but also the partner.
What about the next one, Doc? Am I at risk if I am over 40 years old and I have never been screened, for example, HPV just yet? Am I still at risk?
Still at risk. Because as soon as you have a history of sexual intercourse, it's best for you to get screened every year, every 1 to 3 years for HPV. So that's the pap smear, or you can have the HPV DNA test done.
Even if, for example, you were sexually active in the past and then you tried to abstain the next few years, do you still continuously need to have the checkup?
Yes, you still need to continuously and religiously submit yourselves for the screening, because how would you be able to prevent the precancer stage progressing to cancer? So that's the very main purpose of having the pap smear. It's to screen you for precancerous lesions so that it can be treated before it progresses to cancer.
Right.
Okay, so even if you're not sexually active anymore, but what if you've had it before? It takes, by the way, 15 to 20 years for HPV infection to develop to cervical cancer.
Wow. So it can be in your body within the period of the 15 to 20 years.
That is right.
You won't even know about it.
You won't even know about it. Diba, I said earlier that 80% chance of acquiring HPV in our lifetime. We all have that once we have a history of sexual intercourse. And it doesn't matter how many partners we've had and how many sessions of hot, steamy intercourse we've had. Okay? Now, here's the thing. Most of the women are able to clear the infection on their own. And it depends on your, immune system. But there's no way for you to tell if I'm the lucky one who will be able to clear the infection on my own, or if I'm the unlucky one who will later on develop to having precancerous lesions. No, 3 to 5%, by the way, of women will develop precancerous lesions, and less than 1% of those who develop precancerous lesions will progress to cervical cancer.
It funnels you, Doc, no? When it comes to that. So it's better be safe than sorry. That's really mind-blowing for me to hear. We actually have one last here.
Okay,
One
go.
last situation, Doc, here. What if I have a very healthy, a very active lifestyle, good diet, good exercise, something that will stimulate my immune system to function very well? Am I still at risk?
Still at risk. It doesn't matter if you're healthy, diba? We've seen lots of cases wherein our healthy people we know.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Diba? There's sometimes we get shocked na lang na they have cancer because they're so healthy, they follow a strict diet, they do exercise
Kalit kaayo pag yun,
regularly.
usually.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter. Having a healthy diet, having a healthy exercise routine doesn't make you at less risk of having or acquiring HPV.
That's so interesting. So that's our at risk or not at risk. And as you can tell, every situation is at risk. So it's honestly just much better to have your vaccination process. Much better to follow the A, B, C, V, D process that we heard a while ago from Doc. You know what, Doc? I hope our audience members, I hope those who are listening right now can actually take note of it. It's very important, all of the things that you've been saying right now. Okay, we don't have a known cure for cervical cancer, and it only takes one situation and it can ruin your entire life and the life of those who love around you. So kana siguro, Doc, no? For you to be able to love yourself and to love everybody else, so just get checked. Just get screened.
And you know what? What's very frustrating also is that cervical cancer have been seen in very young patients. We've had patients as young as 21 years old
21.
diagnosed with cervical cancer already. Because, of course, at this day and age, we cannot deny the fact that our teenagers or adolescents already engage in sexual intercourse at a very early age. Good. So it's one of the risk factors of acquiring cervical cancer. That is when you have sexual intercourse at a very early age. No? At the age of 14, 15, it really puts you at risk. So these patients diagnosed at 21 years old, of course, they don't have any history of screening, let alone vaccination.
They don't know any better, no awareness.
That's true because we don't have, the sexual education provided in our schools.
It's still very taboo. There's still the stigma of you not having to educate yourself. Para siyang forbidden information. It's not a book that you should be opening because parang the floodgates would come in and people would think, okay, if you know more about this, so many more unwanted teenage pregnancies. But I think it might be the opposite effect of it.
I think awareness prevents more teenage pregnancies, more STDs compared to, gatekeeping all these information.
And it's so sad that we can only get this information from you, from qualified doctors, from people who specialize and who are expert in the topic, because we can't have just a general discourse or a conversation with this type of topic, which is exactly why we have the podcast right now, to ease everybody's worries a little bit, to say, hey, we understand you. Girl, we get you. Don't worry. You're here. You're in a safe space. You can ask Doc Stippy anything. And speaking of which, Doc Stippy, what about for those who would like to reach out to you and for those who would like to know more information? Do you have anything else to say before we go? And how can they reach you?
So what I really want to say before we end this podcast, I think I've said much of what I wanted to say, but get screened, be vaccinated. Simple as that. And if you have questions, you want to reach me, you can reach me through my Facebook page. That is SMV Obstetrics, Aesthetic and General Gynecology. You can also reach me through my Instagram account. That is Dr. SMV_Cebu.
There you have it, guys. As you can see, you know what? It really helps us, Doc, to know that we have somebody who we can trust, like a girl's girl, if you know what I mean. Because
my patients are my besties.
But most of the time, it's so intimidating to have yourself screened, to be in a place where everything is just serious, and it just adds to the anxiety of what would be my result, rather than just having a conversation about it. Because it just feels like, oh, okay, I'll go to. I actually want to go to Doc Stippy because I want to make chica about my life.
I have patients like that.
Do you?
Yeah. Like, they don't feel anything or they just want an annual checkup. Doc, can I come to your clinic? Can we make chika? Updates lang about my,
It's also a very important figure to have when you have a feminine figure who's just really open and warm. And Doc, thank you for being that. You guys see it from the podcast. She's very warm and accommodating. Pero Doc, it's a breath of fresh air to have somebody like you in an industry that's usually very formal, that's very straightforward, that you have to be like up on your toes all the time.
I want my patients to feel comfortable around me. How else would I be able to understand them if I don't place myself in their shoes, right?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Doc. Doc, thank you, Dr. Stippy, for the work that you do, for the cause that you advocate in, and for the reason why you're here. We really appreciate your time, your effort. And of course, guys, please do follow Doc on all of her social media pages, because you might be the next chica session.
Therapy session.
Right? Thank you so much, Doc. I'm pretty much going to ask Doc a lot of questions right after this. Thank you so much, Doc.
Thank you very much for having me, Claire. It's a pleasure.
It's our honor. Thank you, Doc.
Thank you.
So whether it's getting vaccinated, going for regular screenings, or even having a conversation with your friends, with your family members, with the people who you hold dear, these are steps that can be taken towards a brighter future where cervical cancer can no longer pose a significant threat. So as we wrap today's discussion, I want to thank each and every one of you for listening and watching this podcast. And of course, thank you to Dr. Stippy for giving us such invaluable insights and information about our topic today. And to our listeners, please remember that your health is in your hands, and together we can make a world of difference. So stay informed, stay positive, and stay healthy.